Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sara Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. Today we're going into the wild with the gorgeous Savannah collection from our friends at Stamperia. We have a fabulous assortment of supplies, including an 8x8 pack of patterned papers, and you can see some of the designs here. You'll also notice that there are coordinating cutouts included in this collection, so you've got a lot to play with. You've got some large images that work beautifully as backgrounds, and you also have some collage imagery in here. Everything has a bit of a vintage feel to it and some really nice all over patterns on here. Now with the cutouts, as you can see, some of them are also larger. These make beautiful card focals or something for the inside of your card too. So a fabulous collection to get started with. Then there are also 2 sheets of rice paper. So you have the Savannah square, which you can see you can use in individual squares or you can create groupings. They can easily be cut apart or even torn apart. So the Savannah squares. There's also the Savannah pattern. I'm going to turn this one this way so you can see it can go a couple of different directions. A beautiful soft collage pattern on here that is so versatile. Then there's also a set of 45 chipboard die cuts. You can see some of them here. Some nice large images, great for the front of your card or for a travel journal. And you've also got some smaller elements here too that work beautifully as coordinating accent pieces. Here are the rest of those gorgeous designs. So as you can see, everything is totally coordinated and comes together beautifully. Now I've got some card projects to share with you today, plus of course a couple of demos. We've got a lot to explore today and I'm so glad you're here. Come play with us. Let's start with a simple card using some of the papers and die cuts in the collection. So I've got my 5 inches by 6.5 inch blank card plus a sheet from the Savannah paper pack. Now I can use lots of different areas of this sheet, taking advantage of the borders as well as this beautiful collage scenery area here, but I really want to use this beautiful corner portion for my background. So what I'm going to do is simply apply my adhesive to the front of my card and position this on, smooth it down, flip it over, and trim around the outside edge. And then I will have a card that looks like this. So you can see I've already taken advantage of all of this beautiful collaging on here, some imagery, and even a little portion of the border around here. Now to give some additional definition, I've used my Midnight Black ink pad and just inked around the outside edge. So this is quite simple to do. You just hold your ink pad along perpendicular and then just run that along the edge. And you do want to make sure, let that ink dry before you handle it. So after I ink around the outside edges of my card, I can decide what I want to put as my focal element. Now this is where the chipboard die cuts are a lot of fun and you have so many different choices. So I could pop down my little elephant family here. That's one option. I could also use the big beautiful tree. There's another tree in that collection as well. This one would work really nicely too. Or I can do, let's see, I had another little family here, our lions. Those would be beautiful as well. So you can see, you can also kind of play with the positioning of where you want your die cut to go. But in the end, I decided on the mama and baby rhino. I thought that would be really sweet. And I really like how this creates such a pretty kind of vintage effect on here. Now I could leave this as is, definitely, but I also wanted to work in a couple of additional elements. Not die cuts, but some of the cutout elements that you can use from the paper pack. And I love these little individual tiles on here. So the 2 that I'm using, this one down here at the bottom, which I think is just really pretty, and then this one up here at the top, which I've snipped apart. So let me show you that. So I've got my square piece here, and I thought since I've got a nice collage balance over here, maybe I'll pop it down on the other side. And position that there. And I'm just setting things down for now. And then with the other one, I've trimmed out those postage marks, and those could go, for example, right here to overlap. Now the last thing I wanted to add, because of course this creates a nice collage as it is, but I wanted to add some more depth. So I have one of the chipboard die cut hearts, and I've added a little bit of jute twine just through the hole in there, and I could position this down like so. And then I've got a really cool vintage inspired, travel inspired, adventure inspired card project. Now I haven't glued everything down yet. I will do that, and I'll put the finished card in the project gallery so you can see that after everything has been added on here. But I already decorated the inside, so I'm going to scoot aside these things so they don't fall off, and I'll show you what I've done for the inside. So you can take a peek. I've got a fun piece of this patterned background, which can be used as is, like I've done here. It could also be trimmed apart to create borders. Then I added one of these scenery cutouts and a tag cutout from the collection too. And I've got a little snippet of paper here as like my tag topper on there. So that's how easily things come together with this collection. I think you can see how versatile it is too. This would be beautiful for, as we said, vintage themed cards, but also masculine cards, cards for folks who love to travel and explore. Now here's another card using the papers and the die cuts. And you'll notice my background is made with two pieces of what my daughter calls the fur papers. She really likes these. She loves this collection. So if you have an 11-year-old in your life, you can't go wrong with this either. But I want to show you these two papers because I have a little design tip for you. So I've got two swatches of this, that zebra print, and then we've got this really cool print as well. Now, if I put the two of these together like so, you can tell it's really difficult for your eye to sort of focus on one or the other of these prints. They do sort of compete visually. So what I've done on here, I did two things actually. I inked around the outside edge with my black ink pad, and then once that was dry, I mounted that onto a piece of white cardstock before putting it onto the other pattern paper. And you can see immediately how that will add some visual difference between those two. And then I've got my zebra pattern up on a white piece of cardstock as well. So that really helps to create some balance and helps your eye to sort of focus on where to go. Now the other thing that helps too is that I've got two different tones here. So I've got brown and I've got black, and that also helps to create some contrast. So just a little design tip for you when you're mixing and matching those beautiful fur papers. Now I've also got a foam taped zebra family on top, and I've added a chipboard sentiment and some leaves, and then I threaded this heart chipboard piece onto some jute twine before I wrapped the twine around the paper and then glued it all onto my card front. Then for the card inside, I have another piece of pattern paper and 3 cutouts from the paper pack. So this large one here, and then these 2 sentiments here. Now these are inked, and they are also popped up on a little bit of foam tape for some dimension. Now for a completely different look, you can leave off the wild animals and work with just the gorgeous patterned designs in this collection. So with this slimline card, I've trimmed down a piece of the 8x8 pattern paper, also inking the edges with black, and just popped it down onto the card front. Then I added these 3 circular elements. So of course we know that working in uneven numbers is a design trick that works just about every time. Now another little tip for you. So this is the sheet that I was working with. Now the trick is, which side do you want to use? Because of course you've got one pattern on one side and then the other on the other side. And this is just a really cool, very pretty, a very modern looking design. Now a little tip for you. You know I love my circle cutting ties from hot off the press, and you can perfectly match these on here. Now you will end up trimming off a little bit around the outside edge of those circles, but it really does save you the fussy cutting, especially tricky when you're fussy cutting circles. Those can sometimes be a little bit harder to do. So just a little tip for you, take a look at your circle dies from hot off the press and those will definitely fit. So all three are added with foam tape. And then on this piece here, I have a coordinating chipboard circle in the center, plus a couple of leaves and a flower. Now I'm also using a dazzle, script dazzle for the sentiment on here. And then for the card inside, I have another strip of pattern paper and a heart chipboard piece, and then another coordinating script dazzle. Okay, so we've seen some different looks you can create with the papers and die cuts, but what about those rice papers? Well, let's take a look. I have two projects to show you with those rice papers. Now with this nature themed card, I'm using some of the Savannah square rice paper for the middle area that you can see here. So those 3 tiles, those all come together on the sheet of rice paper. So you probably remember it has this beautiful tile effect. This is where my 3 tiles were. Now you could use this sheet in its entirety, and you can also isolate out groupings of the tiles. You could go vertically, you could go horizontally, you could do 4 together, or you can isolate just 1. And I've torn across that top layer so that I can create kind of a frayed and distressed look. And this is really easy to do. Now working onto my craft mat, I'm going to bring in a watery paintbrush, or a water brush will do the trick too. And all you need to do, if I want to isolate out this travel image here, I'm just painting along the edge with my wet paintbrush. And I'm going to go along all the edges on here. And then just gently separate. Now if I find I bump into any of the thicker fibers on this rice paper, I can just use a pair of scissors to snip that apart. So this has a really nice, soft, fibrous texture, and it tears really nicely. I'll set that aside, and then I can just tear off this side portion here. And I can see one of those little fibers on there. So I just need to bring in my scissors, give that a bit of a snip, and then there we go. So then I've got my piece completely torn out, and then I can adhere this onto my paper or my cardstock. Now I've got lots of options as to how to do this. With my card, I simply glued my piece down onto a piece of white cardstock, and you can see how that will create some really nice definition with that imagery. You can also, of course, put things down onto the pattern paper, kind of the lighter areas, I would imagine. So in this area here where it's nice and bright, that would also look quite pretty on here too. So I'm going to, again, bring in a paintbrush this time, a damp paintbrush, and I'll be using my Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue. So once again, working onto my craft mat. I just need to get a bit of the glue out. You don't need a whole lot. And then adding in just a little bit of water here too. So I want a watery wash of this glue. And I'm going to apply it onto my cardstock in the area where I want to put that. And then simply place my piece down and smooth. I like to start in the center and kind of smooth out from the center to the edges. And I don't need to coat the top of it with adhesive, but I do like to come along the edges here and just make sure that all of the sides are down securely. I can also sort of direct some of these wispy bits if I want to. I really like having that torn edge on there. I think that looks really cool. Okay, and then making sure to put my, my paintbrush into some water right away so that I can use it next time and the bristles aren't all glued together. Then I just need to let this dry, and I can either trim around the outside edge or I can tear the outside edge, which is what I did with this card. So you can see here, after it dried, I wrapped it with a bit of jute twine. I think you can see underneath him right here, and then glued this onto the front of the card. Now this is a slimline card, and it is, of course, 8.5 inches long, so it's longer than the 8x8 pattern paper. So I've just patched 2 pieces together, and you may be able to see it right here. I've got another border piece kind of creating coverage for the seam on there, and everything blends so well. So you can easily patch these papers together. Then I have a couple of chipboard die cuts here and here, and I've also got a cutout from the paper collection. This has been inked around the outside edge and popped up with a little bit of foam tape, and then I've also got some jute twine on there. Now I love using jute twine, but this collection is just absolutely perfect to go with that kind of a rustic effect. And then for the card inside, I have a piece of pattern paper and again a couple of chipboard die cuts. So that's the card. Now I want to show you another project here too, because one nice thing about rice paper is that of course it makes a really nice card front. It also works beautifully on journal covers. And I'm using Stamperia's notebook with a stone paper cover and just covered it with the Savannah pattern. So that's kind of a nice all-over design. Now I have to say the notebook is limited stock at Paper Wishes, but I still wanted to show you how it looks on a journal. Of course you could scale this down a little bit and have it go on the front of a card, or you could just have an oversized card if you like working with larger surfaces. So I tore along the side here that will go on the fold of the notebook, and then I just trimmed along any excess around the outside edge. And I glued the rice paper to the front cover the same way I just showed you onto cardstock. So it's exactly the same process. I inked around the outside edges, and then I covered the front with a little bit of jute twine going along the edge here. I've got one of the cutouts, and then of course some of the chipboard die cut elements on here. So this is our final project for today. I hope you enjoyed seeing this gorgeous collection and how versatile it is for lots of different people in your card giving list. A big thank you to our friends at Stamperia, and a big thank you to you at home for joining me today. We're so very glad you're here, and we're happy that you're part of the Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. Be sure to see the money saver on the right side of your screen at paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, just have a look in the description box below this video. You'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 3 to 5 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.